Man, 5 years really can fly by. Unless it's more like 4.5. But after 4.5 years, we finally have the next Spider-Verse movie, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Honestly, it just felt great to say it. So either way, I'm excited to talk about it, I'm excited to get into it. So I have finally seen Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah, I couldn't even think of a joke to like open up with or a witty one-liner. I mean, I did it for Wonder Woman 1984, but like, I can't believe we finally made it. Across the Spider-Verse is one of my most anticipated movies ever. Like, across the board, this was one that I think right when the credits started rolling in like December 2018 for Into the Spider-Verse, I was like, I'm ready for the next one. Just give it to me as soon as possible, at least in the right way where it can be done well. Just for some context here, because I haven't really talked about Into the Spider-Verse on this channel, at least not that I can think of. And I can say that Into the Spider-Verse is my favorite animated movie ever. It also happens to be my favorite Spider-Man movie. And one of, if not my favorite comic book movies in general. And it really captured that lightning in a bottle moment that really just, at least for me, that made me go, this is something special. Just full out. And I know people are also saying that about Across the Spider-Verse. And I feel like they're saying that because, well, I wasn't really on social media when Into the Spider-Verse came out, but Into the Spider-Verse didn't really do too well in theaters. It it's the lowest grossing Spider-Man movie. I don't know if that has to do with just the fact that it was animated. It was a Spider-Man character. It was a new Spider-Man character in Miles Morales, but we had seen so many Spider-Man movies before this. We know the drill. I also have to mention that Aquaman came out that same month and did shockingly really well. So I feel like that has some factor in it. But over the years, Into the Spider-Verse has really become beloved by Spider-Man fans. I really do love it, even though it didn't get its flowers when it came out, which I had hoped it would. It's earned its flowers now, and I feel like Into the Spider-Verse should be on the pedestal of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves and Toy Story for leaps in what we can do with animation in general. So yeah, it goes without saying that this is one of my most anticipated movies ever. Just the excitement of everything about this movie, everything that went into it. I really only saw the first couple trailers that came out for this movie, and it has just been fantastic, and I've avoided a lot for this. On top of the fact that apparently this movie was so massive that they eventually just split it down the middle, and Across the Spider-Verse is a part one. It was originally called part one, it's not in the title anymore. Part two is coming out next March and is called Beyond the Spider-Verse. So we are dealing with a massive scope of a movie here. Even if it, like taking out animation alone, I think this is one of the most ambitious movies ever, like, attempted. And my God, if this is part one, I don't know what the hell part two is gonna do to me, because, wow. Yeah, I do need to get into the animation first and foremost, because I do think that's my favorite part of this movie. A lot of the animated movies I've seen, the actual animation and art style is usually never my favorite part of these movies. Well, along with Into the Spider-Verse, this is definitely one of the best looking movies I've ever seen. Like when it comes to animation and live action, and just like the story itself, it is ambitious as hell. This is one of the most creative looking movies I've ever seen. Like, flat out, like, I say flat out a lot on this channel if you haven't noticed, but that's how I feel about this. There is so much detail and creativity and love put into this movie, especially in the animation department, that really just You can tell how long they took to make this. This was a 4-year venture to make, and yeah, look at what we got. I would also like to point out the voice acting in this. I feel like they also did a pretty great job, and it is actually a step up from the last movie. Shameik Moore does an incredible job as Miles again, and is slowly becoming one of my favorite Marvel characters in general because of these two movies. And there is just, again, so much love put into the script, and just like there is an overall there's an overall appreciation of the character of Spider-Man in this. I know that's the same for the last one, but there's so much in this that you can tell that even the actors, everyone involved just knew what they were making, and they did it with love. And it felt like nobody slacked here. In this movie, there's much more of a focus on Gwen, Spider-Woman, they actually say. I completely forgot that they refer to her as Spider-Woman and not Spider-Gwen. Again, voiced by Hailee Steinfeld. Her opening action sequence is one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. Honestly, the whole opening might be my favorite of the entire movie. But there's much more focus on Gwen in this, and I just think they did a great job with her too. I also think they did a great job with the villains in this. Of course, they've had a huge spotlight on Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, played by Oscar Isaac, in a very menacing way, and just had a lot of this has left me speechless. I will also add that Oscar Isaac is one of my favorite actors working right now, just in general, and knowing that he did not cut the slack on this also added to how menacing Spider-Man 2099 is, and just like his head was in the game for it, and that's what I want from these movies. The other villain that they haven't really been highlighting too much in the promo that I at least have seen is the Spot, voiced by Jason Schwartzman. He turns out to be a very comedic villain at first. I think he's very funny, but as the movie goes on, he gets darker and darker to the point where he is a genuinely terrifying villain, and you can feel that threat from him. And I'm not going to get into spoilers, but you can feel that threat that, oh, the Spot is literally going to destroy everything. And just great fucking job. I just have to say that. There's more I'm going to talk about, because I have it up right here. But goddamn. Wow. A lot of the action here is pretty great, too. I mentioned the opening scene as well. But the Spider Society fight, which they've shown a bit in the trailers. They haven't shown all of it in the trailers. But just, that fight is just so cool. It really is. I also think the music was really well done. Both the score done by Daniel Pemberton and the soundtrack by Metro Boomin. I feel like they did, I feel like it was good. What else can I say? I hate to do this here. I really do. But there is a but at the end of this. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to justify this one. This is very much part one of a movie. You know how I said they cut this movie down the middle? That's really what it feels like. There's so much happening in this movie. A lot of it does feel like setup, but it is still a very entertaining movie, both in terms of its writing and story, as well as, obviously, the animation. And just, it feels cut off. It feels cut off in a way that is not satisfying. The way I'll compare that is, I think Dune, a part one in its title, is very much a part one as well. It's a lot of setup, there's a lot going on in it, but I felt satisfied from that. Knowing that there is a part two on the way, later this year, I feel like that is going to get me going, and I felt like, okay, that's a good point to stop this. I didn't feel that way for Spider-Verse. Maybe that's because I'm so excited for part two, because I didn't want this movie to end. I really only think the only negative thing I have about Across the Spider-Verse is that it ended. And when you say that, you know how. you know how that goes. I'm going to throw this little section in here because Into the Spider-Verse did win the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. Personally, I think it should have been nominated for Best Picture in general. And I feel that's the same way about this one. I pretty much think this is going to easily take Best Animated Feature. The only thing that I can see it beating it is the new Miyazaki movie that's coming out in Japan this summer. But I don't know if that's coming out here. I don't know what the distribution things are like, because I don't really know Japanese cinema, at least in terms of business. So I don't know what that's going to be. But I think this is easily going to win Best Animated Feature. Like, I could have said that before I saw the movie. Overall, I really do think Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is a massive achievement in animation, just like the first one. While I do prefer the first one in the way of that lightning in a bottle feeling again, that I don't think Across the Spider-Verse has, per se, but I think it does make up for it in its story. I was debating about that, but then when I was talking to a buddy of mine about it, I kind of got flipped on it. So, what a fucking movie. I wrote my notes for this about like an hour ago, and I had a 9 out of 10 in my notes. Fuck it, I'm gonna give it a 10. I don't want to go with the crowd, because literally every review that I've seen, every person that I've talked to about this, has said this is like a 10 out of 10. And I guess I'm joining that crowd because I can't stop thinking about it. Just the more that I think on it, the better I think it is. Who knows? Maybe part 2 will help that push it over into the Spider-Verse as one movie. But I do think as a part 1, it's a little weird. I feel like they meant it literally when they split it down the middle. But hey, not a bad thing. I literally just gave it a 10 out of 10. So, what are you gonna do? So those are my thoughts on Across the Spider-Verse. So my question for you is, do you prefer Into the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse if you've seen it? I'm also going to ask you, what's your favorite animated movie ever? I still think mine is Into the Spider-Verse. I feel like that movie is just so special to me that it just really hits so much for me. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know what you think of Across the Spider-Verse. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!